You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at marcguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. Today's episode and tasting is sponsored by East Brother Beer. Located on Canal Boulevard in Point Richmond, East Brother Beer aims to provide the best beers brewed to create a classic style of beer with a touch of modern sensibility. For 1,001 straight days, comedian Sammy Obeid was on the road. Each night, he was performing at a different venue, on a different stage, in front of a different crowd. That was part of his 1,000 Days of Comedy tour, where he set the world record for consecutive nights doing stand-up. Coming straight out of Oakland, today Sammy has his own comedy enterprise in KO Comedy, gives advice on his blog, and has even thrown his hat into the political ring. Cool. Sammy, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's jump in. I want to get your origin story, how you started in comedy.
Mm-hmm. It's a long story, but I'll give you the highlights. People would tell me I should be a stand-up early on. Even in the third grade, I remember I was on the playground and some kid was like, "You should be a stand-up comedian." And I knew what that was at the time, but I didn't. I just thought it was like a joke.
Were you naturally funny or like the class clown?
I was a kind of a class clown. It depended on the class because I can alternate. I can go very serious, and you would never know that I'm a comedian. I'm a comedian that can go completely undetectable if I want. I like that kind of chameleon ability. Yeah, I don't like always being in the spotlight or always having to feel the pressure to make people laugh. So I was a class clown in some circles. It was kind of like, did I feel comfortable in that circle? Did they like my material?
Yeah.
Sometimes as a kid, I was kind of a weird kid. I would just say really weird things, and it would make people laugh. So I knew I had something, but then later on, I also found out I had a public speaking ability. So later on, I realized that those two things made, for a good comedian. And
there's a lot of funny people, but the public speaking really turns off a lot of people to the point where, I mean, an amazing comic or someone could have been an amazing comic, but they were just afraid to get up on stage.
For sure. The funniest people I know will never try stand up. Yeah, it's just you have to have both those skills. Mm-hmm. So yeah, at some point I found out that I had both and gave it a shot, and it didn't go well most of the early times, but at some point it started going well, and I was like, this is for me.
Yeah, did you get a lot of support from family and friends?
Yeah, I did actually. My family and friends, they came out to all my first shows. They're very supportive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
then you grew up in Oakland, or you were born?
I was born in Oakland. Okay. I grew up in the East Bay, grew up in Berkeley and Fremont. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you come from a Lebanese-American family.
Yeah, my mom and dad are both half Lebanese.
Okay. Yeah. How was that growing up in the Bay Area?
Well, the Bay Area is just very diverse. So, I didn't even know I was anything for 15 years. I knew I wasn't white, but I didn't know what I was. Mm-hmm. And I knew because my mom grew up in Texas, so she wasn't she was very American already. And my dad was an immigrant. He came from Beirut, and he kind of had an accent, but it was mild. He knew how to put on his work voice and everything like that. So it was I didn't feel like I was raised in an immigrant family as much. But at the same time, we had some of the Arab culture. We ate hummus and. My grandparents were very much, bringing the culture to me. So I knew that was going on, but I didn't I knew I was different, but in the Bay Area, everybody's different. So it didn't feel crazy.
Yeah. So growing up, you've got friends telling you you should be a stand-up comic. Mm-hmm. At what point did you decide, let me try this on stage?
It was my freshman year of college. I had a professor who it was a public speaking class, and this is I already knew I had a knack for public speaking since sixth grade, but I finally took a class in my first year of college, and I was doing these speeches that were meant to be serious, but everybody was laughing. Mm-hmm. So after about 3 of those, the professor pulled me aside, and he was like, "Hey, I think you should try stand up. You're a natural." And because it was coming from a point of authority, whereas all of my shithead friends would be like, "Oh, you're a stand-up." You don't know
Yeah.
It's, you know, so this, you know, the professor, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I tried it. And I took this comedy class in San Francisco, and I didn't really do well in the class or pay attention in the class. But at the end of the class, actually before the class even ended, the guy who ran the class was like, I think you're really funny. I'm going to book you on a show right away. So I did that, and that's where all my friends and family came out. And it didn't go well, but like there was something there. Like I had their attention in a way that...
The show overall didn't go well? Or
No, the show was fine. The show was great.
Just your bit.
My set was different. Let's just say I was doing a character. I wasn't really doing stand-up jokes like anything like I do now. It was like a character-driven thing, and I was being weird. That's like the only kind of the brand of humor that I knew at that time. I was 19. I just knew how to be weird. So I knew I had something, but it didn't feel like what everybody else was doing on that show.
Do you still tap into that weirdness every now and then?
Well, it's still me, but like if you see me on stage, I mean, every now and then I'll say something. I guess it depends on the person. There's people who are just everything's weird to them, but for the most, I seem like a pretty normal person on stage, but I'm still weird. Yeah.
So the first time you got up on stage, where was that at?
It was in the back of a Vietnamese restaurant in Alameda.
Okay.
Yeah, it was called the Blue. I think it was called the Blue Lagoon, which is a strange name for a Vietnamese restaurant.
Now, before we started recording, you were mentioning you have some shows coming up down in. Well, you're doing one in San Rafael, and then you're going down to LA to do a few in Southern California.
Yeah.
What's the comedy style as far as for you and the fans or people that attend comedy shows? What's the difference between SoCal and NorCal?
I don't know if I can identify specific differences. I think in general, NorCal can be a little bit more intelligent. There's a lot of smart people in SoCal, but it's a little bit more for show down there. I think it also has to do with the fact that they're so close to Hollywood down there. They see all the stars, so you really need to impress them. You know, they really look for your act, your performance, your character. Who are you? What makes you different? Whereas up here, you know, they kind of listen to your jokes and your content of what you're saying. Is it intelligent? Is it, you know, does it like fit the vibe of the Bay Area? You know, are you saying something that's like offensive or, you know, ignorant? You know, whereas in LA, it's more about presentation.
Okay. Yeah. So at what point did you end up trying out and getting on Last Comic Standing and America's Got Talent? America's Got Talent
was in end of 2011. I went out for their audition. Actually a friend from up here had referred me to a producer down there to get a pre-booked audition. Got the pre-booked audition, went really well, and then I did my big audition for like Howard Stern and Sharon Osbourne and Howie Mandel in St. Louis. That was early 2012. And then Last Comic Standing was... I auditioned for it beginning of 2015 at the Hollywood Improv, and then they watched the tape. And like I know Wanda Sykes watched it, and she told me she chose me because of one of the jokes that I told. And then we did that whole thing. We taped it all in the beginning of 2015 in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you decide to pursue these shows? Was it just additional exposure, something fun to do?
Yeah. It was like, oh, you know, it's a cool TV credit, good exposure. America's Got Talent was really exciting because I had nothing back then. Yeah. And then Last Comic Standing was like, oh, this is good. This is a good opportunity for me because I feel like I'm a good stand-up and I have an opportunity to do well in this.
Did you personally meet Howard Stern, Howie Mandel?
I
was just about to ask that. Yeah. Did you meet Howard?
I didn't get to shake their hands, but you know, we met while I was on stage, and Howard was a supporter of mine. Like he said a lot of great things. He liked me. He was rooting for me, whereas the other two were not as, you know, into it.
Very cool. He's like a tall guy, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, they were sitting, you know, they were like sitting, and we were like up here on a stage. So yeah.
Very cool. So I do want to talk to you about your world record here because it's something that is very interesting. That when I first heard about it, I was like, "Is this even possible?" And obviously, it was. You did it. What popped into your mind to make you say, I want to break the world record for the most comedic performances in a row?
Well, it didn't start like that. It started as just I want to perform as many nights in a row as I can, so I can just get as good as I can, as fast as I can.
Okay, practice, right?
Practice, and then people heard that I was doing this. I like hadn't broken the streak for like 2 months. Like, you should go a full year, and I was like, I should go a full year. And then I made it to day 365. I thought that was a world record. At some point during those first 365 days, I'd contacted the Guinness Book. And I told them I was trying to set a world record. And they said, sure, yeah, you want to set the record? We have to send out one of our appraisers. It's going to cost you about $200,000. And you have to provide a hotel for the appraiser.
Wow.
It's like, well, that's not going to happen. I don't have any TV credits. So, I was just like, all right, it's going to be kind of an informal record. So I just performed every day. And then I got to day 365. I was doing a show in Vallejo. That was my day 365. And on the way there, someone had Facebook messaged me. He said, hey, I heard that Hal Sparks, comedian Hal Sparks, once did 2 years in a row. And I was like, oh, my God, is this real? I looked it up, and it was real. And it was like the worst day. It was like I didn't want to hear it on that day. I thought I was setting a world record that day. And I looked it up on his blog, and it seemed like he had done comedy every night for 2 years in a row. And I was like, well, I can either just quit right now, or I can, push further. But I would have to do a whole nother year. Mm-hmm. And then if I did a year, I would have to go past that. So how far would I go past that? So then I thought, well, I could just go a little bit more than a year or two. I could go almost 3 years, but not quite 3 years, and I would do 1,000 days. It's kind of a nice number, 1,000 days of comedy. So I set my mind on that. And then, so from day 365 to day 1,000, that was the goal, 1,000 days.
So 1,000 consecutive days, but your record is 1,001, right?
1,001. Actually, it's 1,002. People don't know about the last one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I had to do somebody had booked me for a show that I had to do, but
okay,
it wasn't a good show.
Okay, didn't want to count that one.
No. 1,001 is really where it ended.
Yeah. What was that feeling like on day 1,003 when you didn't have to do any comedy?
One of the best days of my life. I just kicked up my feet. I watched Netflix. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I had such a great day.
So how do you do this? I mean, were you coming up with new material every single night, or were you really just honing down a specific set?
It was both. I was writing throughout it constantly. I mean, I wrote at least an hour and a half, 2 hours during the whole. I mean, definitely over 2 hours, but like of good material, I wrote a solid hour of good material across the 1,000 days. But I honed it. I mean, I had some jokes, initially that I did on my Conan set at the very end. Those jokes, some of the jokes I had at the beginning of the 1,000 days, but I refined them so much. I trimmed out a lot of fat. Mm-hmm. And that's what Losing America's Got Talent actually helped me a lot with the honing, because you had to do your jokes in 90 seconds, and I learned to trim the fat. So I did a lot of trimming. So it was like I started the 1,000 days with like an hour or so of material, and then I wrote another hour, then I trimmed it down, then I'm like lost an hour, and by the end I had like 2 hours.
How long does it take to write a joke and then trim it down? And
it depends. Now, I mean, as you get the the further into it you get, the better you get at that. So I'm like 11 years in now, so I can write a joke. I can write like 10 jokes today, but I like to take a lot of time with making them perfect, because you have to. I like to do them on different crowds, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't really work on this crowd. I have to change it up a little bit, and then you find the perfect wording that works everywhere. And for me, that takes months, sometimes even years. So I have jokes now that I feel like are ready to go on TV that I wrote like 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm writing jokes right now that I'm like, oh, this joke is so great, but it's not going to be ready for like another year or two.
Well, that's another thing about jokes, right?
Yeah.
Timing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even timing in your set, but timing like
in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can lose it. You write a good joke that's like really topical, and then you have to like put it out there fast, or it's gonna be useless in a year.
Yeah. Now, were you booking venues for these 1,000 days of comedy, or were you even doing pop-ups like at parks and various places too?
Both. I mean, I try to book as much as possible. Like every night on my calendar, I needed a plan, and then I had a fallback plan for each one. So there was some pop-up instances, and sometimes shows would just come up and just drop in, and
yeah. So how many cities do you think you hit up?
Cities? I didn't count cities, but I mean, definitely in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably could have had a world record for most visited
cities.
Yeah.
Could have thought about that one.
Yeah. So I assume you were not just traveling by car, but flying in between the
Doing
shows.
some flying. I mean, I did most of the shows in California. I want to say I probably did over 600 of the shows in California. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was a lot.
What's your favorite club to perform at?
Favorite club? I like the San Francisco Punchline. Mm-hmm. Probably one of my favorite places to perform for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty small and intimate.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
I
like that stage.
Yeah. I like the background too.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So do you think you'll ever try to break that record?
No, never. No.
Now, what if someone breaks it?
Good for them. I wouldn't honestly. Like, people ask me, like, some people come to me like, hey, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try to do what you did, and I'm like, go for it. Like, I don't recommend it, but go for it. Yeah. Like, it was a very difficult thing mentally. Like, some people, they hear it right away and they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But some people are like, that shouldn't be too hard. You just like, no, it really is, when you just want for the life of you a day off and to not go out and talk to people or be in the spotlight. And it was literally, I made it the first 600, 700 days just with basic stresses. It was just, it was tough, but it was doable. Those last 300 days were so rough. Mm-hmm. And I had a mental breakdown in the last 100 days. I was going crazy. So, like the pressure at the end of just to like, if something happened and I couldn't go on, I guess it wouldn't be as hard if you just stayed in one city and didn't go anywhere. You just walk out of your house, you go to the club down the street, you do your set. So theoretically that wouldn't be so bad. But when you're traveling and stuff, it's a lot of stress.
It takes a toll on you.
Yeah. So I mean, there are people who've told me they're going to do it, and then I'll follow up with them like a year later. They're like, oh, like, yeah, no, I had to take a night off because I got sick. Like, well,
yeah. I mean, you literally did like the marathon of marathons. You know the mud run tough mudder.
Yeah.
So, I did Tough Mudder a couple of years ago, and there was this guy. He lapped me like 3 times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, I do this as many times as possible because I'm training for like the Tough Mudder of all Tough Mudders.
Yeah,
and they do a 24-hour one where they just do as many as they can.
Yeah.
It's just
that's crazy.
Yeah. So
that's what you did.
Yeah. That's what you did.
Yeah. The 1,000-day Tough Mudder.
Yeah. So traveling and meeting all kinds of people, did you end up with any groupies following you?
Yeah. I got a couple super fans, I would call them. And in certain cities, it's interesting, how fan bases work. Mm-hmm. Like for me, because I'm not at the point yet where it's like I have thousands of fans in every city. That would be cool to have that at some point. But now it's like I go to a city, I know I have a few super fans there, mm-hmm. like, and I know them by name. That's my level of fame right now. Okay. I know my super fans by name.
But that's pretty neat, though.
It feels great. It feels great to have
support,
love, and that's all I could ever ask for, because sometimes I would think about it, be like, I only have 10,000 fans and followers, and so has 100,000 or whatever. But it's like you're equally as important to your fans as they are to their fans, Mm-hmm. So you think about that those people that you're touching, that you're helping, that you're like inspiring. Yeah. That's play to your fans,
Yeah, and I assume you're staying in touch with your super fans and fans through social media, right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite social media to use?
My favorite medium?
Yeah, medium.
Oh, man. Facebook to me is the most comfortable and familiar, but I feel like Instagram I don't know. Instagram, I like Instagram, and I don't like Twitter for whatever reason, mm-hmm. even though every now and then I'll tweet. Twitter's the one I don't like. Facebook is super comfortable, but it's a black hole. It's it sucks the life out of you. Yeah. So that's why I can't say it's my favorite. Whereas Instagram is like instant gratification. You post a picture and that's it. I don't mind scrolling Instagram. I like seeing what pictorially what people are up to. But when you read Facebook and you read these long posts, you're like, did I even need to read that?
Yeah.
So I would say Instagram if I had to choose.
An hour later, you end up watching cat videos.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such
a. So doing comedy, obviously there's days where you get up on stage, you do a set, and you just completely bomb.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like? And does that hurt your ego, or does it motivate you more? Like, what do you learn from that?
Mm-hmm. It does both, and if done too much, it can destroy you. if done the right amount in alternate with doing really well and getting love from people, it can make you really strong. But I think you need both doing well and bombing, because if you bomb too much, if you bomb too much, you quit because it's just not going well. So it does for me now, like I'll have one of those sets every now and then, like usually once every few months I'll have a really bad set. And what it is, I'll usually just be thinking about it all night. Like why did I say this, or why did I? And the sets, they usually don't. The good thing is the set that I'm bombing now, they're sets that don't mean anything. They're not important. They're just random places where I for some reason bombed. And I'll just think about like, why did that happen, and what could I have done differently? And then you come back stronger the next few days. Mm-hmm. But it does hurt you. It does hurt you.
When you're trying out new material, do you tend to bomb quite a bit?
Yeah, but like when I do open mics, that's expected. So it's like I love open mics because I go there with a notepad. I read off the notes. There's no, like, everything's a gain. There's nothing that on there whether it works or not. So if you say it and you get a laugh, that's a gain, and if it bombs, that's expected. So that's why I like open mics a lot. But there's sometimes where I'll bring new-ish or newer material, some of it which I've already done, and I'll bring it to like a show where there's people and then it doesn't go well. That's the worst for me. Those feel like a bomb.
Interesting that you like open mic. I had Chris Riggins, another comic, here on the show a few weeks ago, and he hates open mic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most comics don't like open mics. I like them because I think I've spent so much time at them. I've done so many bad shows, and I think the 1,000 Days really taught me an appreciation for being able to just kind of be free in a horrible situation. So that, and then the fact that I like now that I just bring stuff and I read off my notes, and like some people hate when you read off notes. They're like, that's not what stand-up is. You're supposed to just do it from the mind. And I don't care. Like, I just like, dude, I'm here to like work new stuff. The more I can write down on the paper, the less I have to memorize, the faster I can get through it. It's more for my own efficiency, to find out this works. So I love that. It's like I can bring 100 jokes on a piece of paper, go to an open mic, and I do open mics that like give me love, like places who know that I've been on TV and stuff, so they'll give me like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'll go do 20 minutes at an open mic. I'll get through like, 40 new jokes, and I'll find out that 10 of them work. That's an amazing night. Yeah. So that's why I like open mics.
And I guess you would have to keep testing those jokes on various audiences to see, because it may not click with a specific audience.
Right.
Yeah.
So of those 10, you bring 40, 10 do well. Of those 10, you find out 5 actually do well with an audience. And then of those 5, you find out that only 2 do well most places. And of those 2, you find out that 1 is actually a really good joke.
Yeah. I used to go to Cobb's Comedy Club for their Wednesday night showcase I think they still do it.
Yeah, they do showcases on weekdays, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 8 to 11 every Wednesday night, and it was fun to watch like 15 or 20 comics just get up on stage, but everyone had a notepad. Everyone was testing jokes.
Yeah.
And it was pretty neat to see. And if you go to enough of them, you get to see how they fine-tune the jokes.
You follow the comedian, you see them, on a real show later, and then you see them on TV one day doing the joke, and you're like, whoa, I saw that in its first inception. It's crazy.
How was Conan?
Oh, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt really good just being at the end of that streak and finally just being able to relax a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it was just such a very supportive environment. I got to bring my friends. I had a dream a couple months before the Conan set that I was on Conan and that I bombed. So it was like for a moment it felt like the dream was going to become a reality, but that I kind of like fought it in my head, and then I persevered, and it went really well.
So do you still get nervous getting up on stage in front of people?
Yeah, I get nervous, but I usually only get nervous for a specific reason. Like if there's a specific person there watching me, I'll get nervous.
Okay, so it's not a general like.
No, in fact, the more people in the crowd, the better I feel. If you put me in front of 1,000 people, I'll be fine.
Yeah. That's pretty neat. I mean, how big of an audience was Conan?
I want to say his studio audience was like 200 people.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that it would have been a lot bigger.
Maybe 300, but I don't think any more than that. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going forward in the future with comedy?
Well, I hope to. I want to get my own program on TV on some network, and that's kind of what I've been working on for like the last 4 years. I will be on a show coming up next year. I can't really talk about it right now, but hopefully that opens some doors. And I want to sell my own show. I want to do more acting, and I just want to be able to continue doing stand-up in more crazy places like I have, but with like a bigger fan base.
Have you done like writing for other comics or for shows?
I've been offered jobs, but the more I do it and the more I apply for it, I realize that it's not for me. And it's weird because so many people think that about, like, they're like, oh, you're a great writer, you should write for this show, you should write for this show, and for whatever reason it doesn't click. I want to write for myself. I want to write for my show. Just for whatever reason it just doesn't click with me.
What kind of show do you have in mind as far as putting together like your own show?
Well, it's something that isn't. I have a couple different ideas, but the one thing that I've been pushing the hardest that everybody kind of expects and wants from me that I do want to do myself is a math-related show.
Okay.
Because I was a math major, so I do a lot of things with numbers and statistics, and just like what we can infer or deduce from numbers, and if you like in the news every day you read things that have numbers in them, but you don't really process the numbers unless you like think about them visually and what they mean and comparing them to other things and then making jokes like through the lens of humor. It's what I do. It's not a lot of people do make math funny or make numbers funny, so it's something that I kind of like specialize in. So yeah, in a sense that's
Yeah, I saw a video you have on YouTube where you have comedy minus math minus business equals marijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Right. So that was a deduction, right? Because people ask me, how did you become a comedian from being a math major? What's that wow factor? I said it's math plus pot equals comedy. That's what happened. So then you do the subtraction, right? So so that's what I'm working on right now. And I've been working on it for like 4 years. I mean, I shot a pilot last year with a network. They turned it down. I had a couple different development deals with some production companies, and they didn't work out. So it's been a lot of waiting and a lot of trying and reforming with different people. But at the end of the day, it seems like I kind of just have to do something on my own and eventually get the attention of somebody who really sees value in it.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a couple things also on YouTube. You're a guitarist also. You play guitar.
Hey, you watch those? Yeah. That's just a fun thing that I like to do. That one hasn't really gotten a lot of traction at all, but it's like I see it as something that I want to continue doing, and when people really appreciate it, it might get a little bit more love.
Yeah. Now, for the listeners that haven't seen it, basically what you're doing is you have are they another comic, right?
They're a comedian. They don't have to be a stand-up. They can be like just an entertainer personality of like a lot of improvisers and stuff. They come, they bring a story, any story, and I tell them, bring a story that's about 2 to 3 minutes. Come tell the story, and I'm going to improvise a guitar track to it. And it's always so much fun. Because playing guitar, that was like my first artistic endeavor. I started that when I was 11. So I always wanted to do something with that without being a guitar comedian who just strums and tells jokes at the same time. That's not what I want to do at all. So I just have these people come. They share their story. I play guitar to it. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Now, you have some other videos. And so I think with your comedy leading up to 2036.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that we may have the next president sitting here in this
room. We just may. I have a campaign. It's this actually is so if you ask me like what's the record you're trying to set after the 1,000 days, this is my new record. It's the longest running presidential campaign in history. I've been running for president since 2016, and I'm running in 2036. It's a
20-year campaign.
It's a 20-year campaign. Nobody's ever done that before. I checked.
Wow.
But somebody could beat me easily. They could just say, "Hey, I'm running for president," and just try to go longer than me. But
so do you already notify the Guinness World Book of Records?
I didn't. Like this one, I mean, I can only imagine what they're going to charge for a 20-year program. I've given up on Guinness. The tweet, you can look it up on my Twitter. In 2016 I announced my candidacy.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go through a couple of things here for your campaign.
Yeah.
Who do you think your opponents are going to be in 2036?
2036? That's a great question. I mean, some of them are children right now. They're young. I mean, they're young. They're people my age, or they're people, you know, a little bit older than me. No one who's a prominent figure in politics right now. What's her name? The one who's been getting all the videos on. Her last name is it Cortez?
Oh yeah, Cortez. She won in
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, she's great. I hope she runs in 2032.
Wasn't it crazy how she ran in the district next to her as a fill-in?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't even on the ballot. People just wrote her name in and she won.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That would actually suck for the candidates who actually did run.
Right.
I'd be mad at my campaign manager.
Getting knocked out by some millennial on a write-in vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be her VP first, and I'll get my following that way.
So what's your idea on tax planning?
So, you know, my tax plan, which is available online, is very simple. It's called Choose Your Own Tax Rate. Choose Your Own Tax Rate, CYOT, coyote, if you want to go for that. Choose your own tax rate. Very simple. There's a bracket system. You just choose what you want to pay, and you get the services accordingly.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are the services?
Well, you can look them up online, but like for instance, you want to pay the lowest bracket, which is 5%. We'll make sure there's a road that goes to your house, your roads. You call 911, they pick up. It's the basics.
They don't show up though.
I mean, there's no guarantees with you're paying 5% taxes.
You'll be on the list.
Yeah, but you save a lot of money.
Sometimes these days.
Yeah. The 30% tax plan, you can go to the zoo, pick any animal you want. It's yours. You pay 30% taxes. You deserve a tiger in your backyard. So there's a lot of great perks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it makes sense. You should. Taxes are like a service. You should get what you pay for.
What would be your policy on marijuana?
Marijuana will be allowed on planes. That's my biggest thing, because nobody's fighting for that right now. I'm the first candidate fighting for marijuana to be legal on planes. So that's my policy. 2036, marijuana will be allowed on planes.
Get rid of those annoying smoke detectors.
Yes, no smoke detectors and no babies on planes either. So it'll be.
Or just make a plane just for babies, and you got to fly on that one.
Yeah,
well, you can all be miserable together with your baby.
Very low fares on that. If you want to save money, you go on the baby plane. It's all babies.
Okay, foreign relations strategy.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's really just about building connections. You know, I think Russia is the most important, and I performed in Russia in 2016. I was the first American comedian to ever headline in Russia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a good relationship with the Russians, and
so they can help work the voting booths and get the
exactly.
fake news out. To
Exactly.
Help
And I say this in my act, but it's like, you know, when Russia loves you, you win an election. So I'll see you in 2036.
Russian bots, 2036.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I already have 12-year-olds working on the algorithms in Russia.
Yeah, apparently they have like big giant factories of just hackers.
They do. They do.
I mean, they got nothing better to do over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
You look at the weather.
Right.
Yeah. What's crazy? There was a girl that posted on Twitter 2 photos. One in the summertime, one in the wintertime. And I guess it gets to minus 80 degrees in her at where she lives, like up
Siberia.
North, Siberia, yeah. And then in the summertime, 80 degrees.
Yeah.
Like just complete flip.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, what did you learn in Russia though when you were over there performing?
You know, I learned that they're just normal people, just like us. They're very much like Americans in a lot of ways. And I learned that when they have a saying, when you're bombing something, that means you're doing well. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, he's completely bombing it. Like that's like a good thing.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
So that's like out here saying, oh, he's killing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Over there, it's bombing, which just shows they're very intense people. Yeah, I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time there. I only had like 36 hours in Moscow, but you know, they took me out. They showed me they took me like the Kremlin and the Red Square and that whole area, and you know, did the show, and they laughed at everything. I had to have a translator there because A lot of them don't. Most of them don't speak English.
I was just gonna ask you that. How was
So-
it performing
You-
for like another group of people that don't speak English?
Well, I had to choose my jokes carefully. I had to choose things that didn't have like wordplay and I didn't talk about Putin for sure. But like I had to choose things that I knew that they would understand. So, but I was surprised. Like they laughed at everything. And yeah, I mean, it is interesting that most of them don't speak English. It's like there's so many countries out there that like everybody in those countries like tries to learn English because they want to do well in American business or whatever. But Russians don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even try to learn English. And it was like funny because like we took like a cab, and I was like trying to talk to the guy. He didn't understand a word that I was saying, but he was listening to Coldplay. So it was like what made no sense.
Yeah. So, you still live in the Bay Area, right?
No, I live in LA.
Oh, you live in LA now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you like LA compared to the Bay Area?
It's fine. I mean, I prefer the Bay Area, but you gotta live where you gotta live.
Yeah. So when you're up here in the Bay Area, what's your favorite go-to spot as far as restaurant, coffee shop?
Ooh.
Your go-to?
There's a lot of good places I like. I mean, I like Burma Superstar. Huge. I love Burmese food.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of great Burmese places. I like Mandalay in SF and Burma Love. But Burma Superstar is great. There's an Indian restaurant in Fremont that I like, Shalimar.
Mm-hmm.
That place is dope. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good places. Coffee shops, I don't really have a go-to
Not
coffee
a
shop.
coffee drinker.
I do, but I usually just make it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a question we have on Facebook is, what's your funniest bathroom, restroom experience?
Funniest bathroom, restroom experience?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Everything, I'm like blurring a bunch of different events together. I'm trying to think of what is actually real. Because I have a few jokes in my act where I'm like, oh, this happened in a bathroom, but they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
Funniest bathroom experience. I don't know. I'm just drawing a blank.
Yeah.
You can help jog my memories somehow. I don't know.
Well,
I
what
really
about
can't think of anything.
travel? Doing all sorts of traveling. I'm sure you got to have some sort of wild
Traveling.
travel story.
Airport stories.
Airport story, travel story.
Airports are great people watching areas, though. If you like to just sit there and people watch.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting people in an airport. God, I mean, I'm in an airport all the time. It's like every week it's something else. I'm just thinking of something like, it was like recently, like I brought a mango with me. I had a mango. I, for some reason, bought a mango somewhere, and I brought it, put it in my bag, went through the machine, and the guy stopped it. He's like, "What is in your bag?" And I was like, and it was like, because I could see it on the screen. It was like a big body of water. And I was like, "Oh, it's a mango." He's like, "Oh, it's a mango." Okay, then he just let it go through. I was like, "What?" It's like, "Oh, you didn't tell me you had a mango with you." That was interesting.
They didn't check to confirm that it was indeed a mango.
No, they didn't.
So it could have been anything.
Yeah.
They just said, "Oh, that's good to know."
Right. He's like, "Well, no, I recognize that seed. That's a mango." I don't know. Like, I don't know how he knew that.
TSA is well versed in mango.
Mango.
Studies.
They're very
Mangoology.
They have to know all the fruits. So.
At least they didn't ask you where you brought it from.
Right. Well, this wasn't international, so I guess it was fine.
Okay.
I think I was flying back from Portland. Yeah. Travel all the time.
Okay, so you're looking to do some shows, put your own shows together. Yeah, I mean, do you think you're going to be putting stuff together more out there on YouTube?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely plan to be posting some more stuff soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have other comics or comedians coming onto your
Guitar show? Yeah, I have a few of those that I haven't
Do you have a
released
name
yet.
for that show, or you're just
It's called
kind of
Strum on Me.
Strum on Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
someone
you.
tells a story, and then you've got music, improvising.
Make a song. That's all, song and funny.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a show coming up in San Rafael, some other shows down in SoCal. I assume if people want to follow you, go to one of your shows, they can look up your schedule on your website.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all there.
And what's your website?
SammyKO.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and link it up on the podcast description, everywhere else. And Sammy, I mean, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for
really
having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and good luck to everything you're doing in the future and getting these shows. And
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
to more episodes of Strum on Me.
Yeah. I'll put more out.
Yeah, and you've got my vote for 2036.
Thank you so much. Great. Don't change your mind.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubin. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.